a Big Bang, and a wonderful universe. Only one question: who created this universe? Yes, as a result of big explosion, a wonderful universe came into existence. Galaxies, stars, our solar system, and our Earth. Millions of species live, systems, laws, existences, incredible events. Considering all this, the question of who comes to mind. Now, let's see who is the creator of this universe. When we gather the reasons that the unbelievers and believers put forward for the existence of the universe, we come across four ways. Either we will say that this universe comes into existence by chance and still continues to exist. We will say that atoms do it. We will say that it's the nature that did all these works and it still does it. Or we will accept an almighty creator. There's no other way than these four ways. If we prove that the first three ways are mentally impossible, there is only one way we can accept, and that's the existence of a creator. In fact, there is no need to even talk about it, because anyone with a particle of intelligence knows that nothing can happen by chance. He knows that artistic and wonderful works cannot be random. So, for example, everyone knows that a phone like this will not exist by chance, or no one would claim that such a car came into existence by chance, or no one can argue that such a building or such a book will exist random coincidental. At least no sane person would defend such an idea. What I mean is that an artistic work cannot be without an artist, a book cannot be without a clerk, and a needle doesn't be and cannot be without a master. This is very obvious thing. What mind would accept that all the letters of such a book came together by chance? Or is it possible that all the parts and features of a car came together by chance to form this car? Of course not. Now, is it ever possible that a person who is the millions of times more artistic than that car, who has life, knowledge, will, power, who can see, hear, speak, who has a mind, soul, heart, and who is renewed every moment to come into being by chance? Is it ever possible that a person doesn't have a creator? It's a sign of folly to accept that not just one human being, but billions of people and countless living things came into existence by chance. No sane person would accept such an idea. Yes, we just proved that nothing can come into existence by chance. Okay, it didn't happen by chance. So, couldn't atoms have done it? Now friends, first of all, we need to know that in order to be able to do an artistic and wise work, we need to have the following four features: life, knowledge, will, power. Without these features, we cannot do anything artistic and wise. For example, this pen in my hand is an artistic and wise work. Let's see if I can make this pen without any of these features. Is it possible for me to make this pen if I don't have life? Of course not. I don't have the knowledge to make the pen. Can I make this pen? For example, I don't have the knowledge to make this pen at the moment. If someone says make a pen, I cannot, because I don't have the knowledge to make the pen. I have life, power, will, but no knowledge. So I cannot make this pen again. Or if I don't have the power to make the pen, for example, if I am paralyzed, can I make the pen? Of course, I cannot. So, we understand we cannot do an artistic and wise work without having any of these four features. Now, let's examine the situation together. Look, a sperm cell from the father and an egg cell from the mother come together, and months later, such a magnificent earth emerges. Like everything else in the universe, sperm and eggs consist of atoms. Now, let's see if atoms can make a human. As we just proved, we need to have all four features in order to do an artistic and wise work. If even one of them is missing, we cannot do an artistic and wise work. When we look at the properties of the atoms, they are inanimate, knowledgeless, powerless, willless, unconscious substances. Now, can these lifeless, unconscious atoms create such a wonderful work? Of course, they cannot. Now, in this case, a question comes to mind. For a baby to exist, a sperm from the father and an egg from the mother are required. These cells are also consist of atoms. So, ostensibly, atoms are making that baby. However, since atoms don't have knowledge, will, and power, they cannot make a baby. How do we explain the situation? It's a really good question. Let's explain by giving an example. And a letter is being typed right now. Then the pen ostensibly writes this letter. When we examine the situation, life, knowledge, will, and power are required for the letter A to be written. However, the pen that wrote it ostensibly doesn't have those features. Yes, This situation cannot be explained by what we see now. However, if there is someone who has life, knowledge, will and power in the background holding that pen and voice with that pen, then there will be no problem. As you can see, dozens of letters are written and there is no impossibility in mind. Just like that, all the atoms don't have life, knowledge, will or power. Everything in the universe, animate and inanimate, consists of atoms. That is to say, in background, there is such a person who possesses these atoms that he has eternal life, knowledge, will and power. Just like in the example of a pen, all problems and impossibilities disappear when you see someone with knowledge, will, power and life in the background. Nature, laws, vegetation, earth, sky, whatever you call it, we will call it nature, representing all of them. We have mentally proven that coincidence is impossible, that atoms cannot do these things, and that someone must be behind it. Now let's see if nature can do all these things. You cannot give to someone else something you don't have, right? For example, I don't have a Ferrari. Can I give it to you? Or I don't have $1 million. Can I give you $1 million? We can multiply these examples. As a result, we cannot give to someone what we don't have. Now, let's first look at the features we have. We have life, will, knowledge, and power. We can see, speak, hear, have mercy and compassion. Those who give them to us must have these features. Otherwise, He cannot give us all these features. As per the rule, you cannot give to others what you don't have. So, is there life, knowledge, will, and power in nature? Can it see, speak, hear? Does it have mercy and compassion? Of course not. Of course, it doesn't have any of these features. Moreover, it should give these features not only to a person, but also to all people who have compass and feature. It must have a knowledge that will create millions of species of living things. It must have infinite power to rule the huge universe. In other words, friends, nature is a work created, not a creator. Friends, I want to talk about the laws in nature. There are indeed wonderful laws and they work wonderfully. When I ask how all these things work, it said that the laws do these things. This is very wrong and unreasonable defense. Because the law doesn't work, the law maker does the work. For example, if you walk into a shop and the message no smoking, if you see a sign saying you wouldn't smoke, will you? Now, the reason you don't smoke that cigarette is because that sign is hanging there? Of course not. There is a state that owns that law that hung that sign there. That's why you don't smoke. Otherwise, that sign cannot do anything to you on its own. Likewise, the laws of nature cannot do anything by themselves. Behind them must be someone who enforces those laws. Yes, we have an enormous universe after the Big Bang. When we examine the reasons for the existence of the universe, we proven mentally and logically that it couldn't have happened by chance, and that causes and nature couldn't create this enormous universe. Now, we will look at the person behind all these works. Billions of people, countless animals and plants, and this universe filled with wonderful works of art from particles to stars will surely have a creator. And this creator must have eternal life in order to give life to countless living creatures at every moment. And in order to control everything from particles to stars, he must have infinite power. And in order to create countless creatures, he must have infinite knowledge. And while creating so many creatures at every moment, he must prefer creation not to creating. And for this, he must have infinite will. And in order to bring countless creatures from non-existence to the realm of existence, he must have infinite mercy. This person of eternal love, knowledge, will, power, and mercy is only Allah. Allah shows those with intelligence the proofs of his existence in every creature, from particles to stars. And he shows to the eyes that are not blinded that what he has created cannot be work of the coincidence, that inanimate unconscious atoms cannot do it, and that nature is a created art, not a creative one. Yes, whoever looks at and examines this enormous universe, if he has not lost his mind and not blind, understands and believes that there's and must be a wonderful created behind all these things. Now, take a look at this universe. Do you think this universe came into being by chance, or made inanimate atoms, or created a created nature? Or are you one of the fools and the blind?